Shalom. First and foremost, I'm going to start by giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rekah HaKodash, double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well, and peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, pushing this word with all truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Shalom, shalom. This is your brother Quan Walther of the Great Millstone Charlotte Camp. Come with a quick lesson to the spirit and power of Yahweh Yahweh Shai. And this morning, afternoon, just touching on the topic of the Lord setting up that this righteous world order, man. Trump was quoted as saying a regime change would be best in regards to what's going on down there in Iran, right, and the global tensions. But that same sentiment applies to the world as a whole, man. Right? We're watching the regime change, go from the hands of the wicked into the hands of the righteous, man. Right through Yahweh Shai. So like he said, a regime change will be best. It's gonna benefit the whole earth. It's gonna benefit eternity, really, man. Right? But I wanted to get this word here for regime. It says a system of government or rule, right? And this is going to be an eternal government, right? It says mode of management. And as brothers often go into, the world has been mismanaged, man, right? The world is in need of new management. They've misused, right, the blessing that they received, right, as Cain, right, through the Spirit, right? They've been given, right, the fatness of the earth, and the earth is worse off, as a result, man. So the world is in need, right, of a regime change, right, and it's going to be, the most beneficial change, right, in history. Let's see what else it says. It says from the Latin regimen, rule, guidance, right? There's no guidance here, right? There's no rule, there's no order, right? A true order is about to be established. Government, means of guidance, rudder, to direct, to move in a straight line, right? Because this place is going in the wrong direction, But, that's the point, right? Because underneath the rulership that we're seeing, right, the earth is in a continual state of mourning, man, right? So a new regime change is going to be, right, what best suits, right, the earth. This is Ecclesiasticus or Sirach chapter 10 and verse 1. A wise judge will instruct his people, and the government of a prudent man is well ordered, right? So, those judges being reestablished, right, through the elect, right, through Yahweh Shai, is what the earth is going to need, is going to need, right? That wise judge, starting with Yahweh, the Yahweh Shai, King David, 144,000, the judges, right, are going to give those instructions, man, right? This government, this regime, right, is going to be instruct in righteousness. That's why it says the government of a prudent man is well ordered. We're being well ordered now, right, so that we will be able to give order in the kingdom, man. It says, as the judge of the people is himself, so are his officers, right? So what we're seeing right now, right, with the e-files, right, with all the exposure going on with with Amalek, with all these Edomites, truthfully, right, we're seeing these men are just exemplifying the characteristics of their leadership, man, right? They're so-called judges. It says, in what manner of man the ruler of the city is, such are all they that dwell therein. And the people, right, this freaked out society they all exemplify these same characteristics, man. That's why the outrage isn't, the people aren't in an uproar about the e-files, right? That's why, you see people being content with the things that are going on in society, right? Being complacent because they're of that same mindset, man, right? If they were given access to those same resources, that best believe they'd be doing the same things, right? Because they're not ordered. They're not, and they're not being well ordered, right? Because of the rulers. So I got tired of the lesson, from that quote. a new regime change will be best, man. Right? The best thing the earth can see and will see is the regime switch hands from Esau unto Jacob, man. Right? Verse 4. The power of the earth is in the hand of the Lord, right? Because he set up this base man, right, in power and rulership, right, as an example of how bad things can get, man. Right? It says, and in due time he will set over it one that is profitable. And we're about to see, right, that one that is profitable, right, be established, man. Right? Through Yahweh Shai, right, and the men on down, right? The earth is gonna profit as a result, man. It's in a continual state of growing weaker through age, as the scriptures say, man. Right? So now the earth is gonna be able to be at its fullness, right? It's gonna be able to yield its full strength, right? When it hasn't been able to. Let's get this. Isaiah 14. And let's see. We'll start in verse 4. It reads, that thou take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, actually, let's start in 3. It's Isaiah 14:3. And it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow and from thy fear and from the hard bondage wherein thou wast made to serve. Right? So we're going to be redeemed out of this captivity. That thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how has the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased, right? And that goes into this whole hegemony, man. Right? Everything about this Edomite, rulership, right, is going to cease. It's going to come to an end. The Lord had broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers, right? And that goes into their power, right? Their rulership is going to come to an end, right? That's why it says, how oft is the candle of the wicked put out, right? That candle is about to be put out. They're in they're the dwindling flames of the Edomite rule, right? That's why we're seeing them take such drastic measures, right? In the pursuing their new world order, man. It's like it. Verse 5. The Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke. He that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted and none hindereth. Right. So the earth, right, has been under constant, like it says in the NLT, endless blows of rage, man. Right. It's been continual death and destruction, right, that's come at the hands of these Edomites, man. Right. These wicked elite banking families, these globalists, right, these puppets that have been set up, right? They're all hand in hand, right? Continually beating the people into submission, man, right? And like it says, now he is being persecuted, man, right? He's being exposed on all levels, and nobody's stopping it, man. Everybody is really those people who are in the know are bringing these things out more and more and more, man, because they're really not getting their slice of the pie, as brothers often go into, right? They've been kicked down, right? Their fellow kinsmen Edomites, right? So they want to expose these things to the masses. It says, verse 7, the whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing, right? So the earth is going to be at rest, at ease, right? At the destruction of this place, man, right? At the fall of this wicked kingdom, right? Right? At the changing of this regime, right? Let's get that in, let's see here. This is 2 Ezra chapter 6 and verse 8. And he said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. For Esau is the end of the world, right? This current age. And Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth, right? So that age, right? This regime, right, is changing hands, man. We're in that change of power, right? We're in the midst of it. We're watching it take place right before our eyes, you know. So the world power, the world influence is going from Jacob or going from Esau, Salakia, going from Esau to Jacob, man. This current time frame, this current system, these current customs and ways of life are all going to be done away with, right? And a righteous way is going to be ordered in the earth, right? That's why it says, let me get this. It's Isaiah chapter 1 and verse 26. It reads, I will restore thy judges as at the first, and thy counselors as at the beginning. Afterward thou shalt be called the city of righteousness, the faithful city, right? But the judges, right, as we read in that Sirach 10, right, are gonna be restored, man. Right? The wise counsel is gonna be established in the earth, right? The regime, the government, going back to that word, the system of government or rule, the mode of management, right? The rule, guidance, right? The direction, right? Everything is going to be directed in righteousness, man, right? Going back, Isaiah 14 and verse 7. Salakia. Isaiah 14 and 7. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no feller has come up against us. Now that speaks on the actual physical trees, but men are likened unto trees as well, man. The people are likened unto trees, and the cedars, are a holy wood. Right, so the that chosen wood, right, is gonna be what's it called? Rejoicing, man, right, as well as the rest of the world, the rest of the nations are gonna be in a state of rejoicing, right, after they see a righteousness be established in the earth, man, right, after they realize that being a subject under Israel is gonna be greatly more beneficial than being under subjection under Esau, Edom, man. It says, hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It had raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. Right, so everybody's going to be remembering, right, the death that they brought to the earth, man. Right? Right, that's why the hell from beneath thee is moved to meet thee, man. They're gonna be put in a terrible state, That's why Esau, the spirit of Edom, has to be wiped out of the earth, man. Right, but they have to go through that long, hard, right, 1,000 years of servitude, man. Right. It says, all they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us, right? Because now the former kings, right, are gonna be at the bottom, right? Everything is gonna be turned right side up, right? As the earth has been upside down, for this millennia, right? Ever since the Greeks, truthfully, right? From Greece onto through Rome, through all these Edomite kingdoms, right? This hegemony, right? They've been in rulership. They've been having the people under their foot, right? So now they're going to be put down on the same level, man, right? It says, they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy vows, the worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee, going into that decay, man, right? This whole society is rooted in wickedness, man. But that wickedness leads to decadence, which that root word goes into decay, right? A lack of morality, you know, uh, and that's why we need that regime change, man. That's why the world needs that regime change. You know, let's get this Daniel 7. This is Daniel 7 and verse 13. It reads, I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. And there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, right? Because we're going into that change of government, right? A kingdom is just what's the word? A monarchy, a form of government, man, right? It says that all people and nations and languages should serve him, right? And if they're in service to Yahweh Shai, right? Us being those joint heirs, they're gonna be in service to us, man, right? And that people are already, in the mind frame of servitude, right? That's the natural lot of the heathen, man, right? So they're gonna go from the worst service to the best service, man, right? Esau, Edom has, again, as it said, they put that continual stroke, right? They're the reason why the earth is mourning and dying at the at the rate it is, man, right? But once a righteous rulership is established, right, a righteous dominion, a righteous kingdom, right, once they're in servitude, right, underneath that, then everything is going to be able to flourish and thrive, man. It says, his dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. So it's going to be eternal righteousness, eternal abundance. It's going to be eternal growth, right? Everything is going to be able to reach its full strength, man, right? Where now we're watching things, animals going extinct, right? The earth itself, the trees and the air, everything is polluted, right? All these things have to be reset, man, right? Right, as the scriptures talk about new heavens and a new earth, man, right? That word new going into the word kainos, man, meaning to refresh, right? Everything has to be restarted, but it won't be able to get refreshed, right, until that new regime is in place, man, and it's starting here, right? With the men you see teaching and preaching this word, man. The men who have been given this wisdom and knowledge and understanding, right, through the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, right? This is the government, right? Being started, man, right? That standard, right, of of Yasharallah, right, is starting with these men. Let's go. Actually, let's see what I have. This is Revelation 19 and verse 12. It reads, actually, we're starting 11. It says, and I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse. And he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True. And in righteousness he doth judge and make war, right? And that war is taking place, right? And is about to take place, as we've been going into the regime change, any change of government, any change of regime, right? War was the catalyst, right? And Yahweh Shai is bringing that final war, right? And like it says, he doth judge, right? So he's going to judge and make war. So that war is going to take place, and then judgment, right, alongside it, man, right? And then judgment, throughout eternity, right? It says his eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. But the point I wanted to get was those many crowns, man, right? All the power, right, of this this global order, right, is gonna be given to him, man, right? So all these kings, right? Because it's not about him stacking crowns, but it's about the power in the earth, right? All these kings, these what are they called, oligarchs, right? All that power is being transferred, right, as we speak, right? As they're losing their grip, right? Yahweh Shai is tightening his grip, man, right? And that's why you see the world in the state that it's in, man, because we're every day we're that much closer to the establishment of this righteous kingdom, man, right? Of true world order, right, being brought to the earth, right? To a regime that's gonna benefit existence, that's gonna benefit the earth as a whole, the universe, right? Everything is gonna have be in a better standing, right? Once this regime is established, you know. Let me see if I can get that. Yep. This is Second Ezra 14 and I'll start in 13. Second Ezra 14 and 13. Now therefore set thine house in order and reprove thy people, comfort such of them as be in trouble, and now renounce corruption, right? Because the elect are separating themselves from this society, man, right? Here we have no continuing city, right? It says, and like I said, you set your house in order, right? You warn, right? And you give comfort, and part of that comfort is understanding, what's to come, right? Part of that comfort is knowing that we're gonna have a righteous kingdom being established, man, right? All this is all that we're going through, right? The benefit is gonna greatly outweigh, right, the cost, right, or the sacrifice that has to be made, right? It says, because we're gonna be a part of that regime, right? We're gonna be a part of that governing body. Lord willing, we continue, man. We endure unto the end. It says, let go from the immortal thoughts, cast away the burdens of men, put off now the weak nature, and set aside the thoughts that are most heavy unto thee, and haste thee to flee from these times, right? Because we need that covering, man, right? And then hasting to flee, right? We're running to Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, man, right? We're running to that house, we're running to that protection, the hedge, and set. So like where we at? Verse 15. And set aside the thoughts that are most heavy unto thee, and haste thee to flee from these times. For greater evils than those which thou hast seen happen shall be done hereafter. The point, verse 17. For look, how much the world shall be weaker through age, so much the more shall evils increase upon them that dwell therein. Right. So the longer we're in this captivity, the longer Esau Edom is in rulership, the worse and worse the world gets, man. Right? Like the scriptures say, right? No flesh will be saved, right? If the Lord didn't hasten the days for the elect's sake, man. Right? They would destroy everything, and they're on the path to destroying everything, man. Right? Trying to establish this technocracy, trying to push this transhumanism, right? All these different agendas they have in place, right, are just further and further, destroying the earth, man, right? So that's why he has to be taken out of the earth completely, That's why that spirit has to be done away with. That frame of thinking has to be done away with, right? Everything that they've established has to be done away with, right? The government, right? The direction, going back to that word regime, right? The direction they have this place headed is a direction of destruction, man, right? So once the Lord comes and reestablishes the earth in righteousness, right? Redeems his elect, right? Refreshes the earth, right? A new order, a new government, right? Can take hold, man, right? These other nations think that this World War III is going to allow them, specifically China and Russia, and they think that they're going to be able to step into that power seat, but The power seat belongs to Yahweh Shai, man. Right, as we read, right, he's gonna take those crowns. He's gonna take that power, right, and he's gonna divide it up amongst his men, right, his brothers, you know, and that regime is gonna be established in the earth in righteousness again, you know. We'll read 18. For the time is fled far away, and leasing is hard at hand. For now hasteth the vision to come, which thou hast seen. Right. So we're right. This time is coming quicker and quicker, man. Right. And like the scriptures say, right, our salvation is nearer than we believe, man. And if that's the case, and that being the case, right, if our salvation is nearer than we believe, that means the kingdom is nearer than we believe. That means a righteous government is nearer than we believe, man. That means eternity, right, is nearer than we believe. You know, righteous bodies, right, getting out of these chains of darkness. You know, the power that comes along with all of this, man, right, is nearer than we believe, right. So like I taught the lesson, right, a regime change would be best, right. So Trump was, he's in the right spirit, right. It's just he doesn't understand that the regime change, right, that's actually gonna happen is gonna be the change from Esau unto Jacob, man, right, from the wicked unto the righteous, you know. So Lord willing, that was an edifying lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Shai. I'm going to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Shem Shai, Bashem Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well. And peace and blessings to the hopeful elect pushing this word with all truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Shalom, shalom. Ekwam Yasharala in the Bible Ball. Shalom.